And now it's time for Blossoms of My Life Radio with your host, Ramona Trevino. Ramona is a teacher, a pastor, a 3-time author, and radio host since February 2018, helping people share their but God moment and helping people see and be the blossoms in life. This program is a production and sponsored by Blossoms of My Life Radio Ministry and listeners like you. Now here's Ramona.
God bless you, and thank you for tuning into Blossoms of My Life Radio. Thank you so much for being faithful listeners and just listening to us and my different guests. And I'm so honored to have just the different people that have been on since 2018. And thank you so much for always tuning in faithfully. I'm really excited to be able to introduce these two gentlemen. I'm going to introduce each of them by their bio right now. So one of them, married by my cousin, so he's a cousin right now. He is born and raised in Bakersfield, California, in his home that is built on love, discipline, and respect. His parents, both incredibly hardworking, instilled in him the value of showing up and putting in the work to build the life that you want. From a young age, he felt called to serve. And just at 7 years old, he started walking neighborhood dogs to raise money for local animal shelters, hoping to even make the smallest impact. At 23, he enlisted in the United States Navy as a corpsman, combat medic, where he had the honor of serving alongside some of the greatest people he has ever known. His time in the Navy taught him lessons in leadership, resilience, and purpose, lessons that he carries with him every day. After he was honorably discharged in March of 2021, he faced a tough chapter, losing the sense of mission, camaraderie that came with military life that led to a season of depression. But with the unwavering support of his wife, kids, and family, he found a new purpose, one rooted in service and community once again. Today, him and his partner that we're going to talk about with James, and I'll introduce him in a minute, they are co-founding something that we're going to talk about called the G3 Bar. And this G3 Bar is a plant-based performance bar company built on clean ingredients, grit, and also giving back, alongside with his friend James that I'm going to introduce to you, and also in the Navy. So now let me introduce you to James with his bio so that you know a little bit about him, and then we're going to talk more about them, of course, when you start listening to them. James grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, living with his grandmother. He's always known hard work. He started working when he was 10 with a local newspaper company, and after some time, they moved to Arizona his sophomore year. That's where he enlisted. After boot camp, he was headed to 29 Palms, California. At 29, head to 29 Palms, California. There he worked in pediatrics department and learned to rock climb. 2 years later, he went to Guam. That was his favorite duty station. He says it was super fun. He got really into the outdoors, and he even started to scuba dive. Here he worked in the ICU, the ER, and then also after this tour, he went to his first med battalion where he met his best friend, Chase, who I just introduced to you. He did 11 years in the Navy, and now he's currently in flight school. Oh, wow, James, that's awesome. Anyways, I'm super excited to be able to introduce these two, and thank you both for your service. Thank you both for everything that you do for us so that we can have what we have here, in this great nation. And so, Chase, let's start with you. Thank you so much, cousin, for taking the time to do this. I was super excited when I found out about this new venture and just being the co-founder of the G3 Bar and just knowing that just by the post and just you were so excited. I could almost hear your excitement in your post. Like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
Like, this is so cool that he's doing this. And, I want to take it back a little bit, though, because it's something that I read, and I think it's really important for a lot of people to hear. And there's probably some other veterans out there that know this. But You know, when
Okay.
you go into the service, and I've never been, I just know that my dad, and he told me some things when he was stationed in Japan and things. But when you leave that, you know, and it's quite I like the part that both of you went into the field of medicine in a sense, right? Medics. But
Right.
talk about what that's like, that when you have to leave what you have that's so tight, right, with all these people that you're around, and how it leads to that depression that you almost have to identify it, because you can't really heal from it unless you can identify what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a super common struggle. I'd want to say almost every single veteran that I've ever spoken with, it's something that we immediately address with one another. We talk about it right away because it's so common, and it's it's really kind of rooted from this sense of purpose, right? You know, I enlisted at an older age than most. I was 23, like I said in the bio, and even at that age, it's some of the most formative years of a young man's life, you know, through early 20s to mid 20s. And so I really found out who I was as an individual very quickly. I mean, even just in boot camp, you find out like what you're made of, what you can endure, and it really kind of shapes you entirely. And that's kind of the whole point of that process of basic training. They shape you, they form you. You know, you're molded into exactly what they need you to be to get the mission done, essentially. And so you're so focused on being kind of molded into this machine that they need you to operate as. And, you know, fairly quickly you find purpose. You know, you find purpose in this common mission that we're all going through this struggle together. We're all, you know, we all have our own struggles, but we all have this common struggle. Even after boot camp, you know, you go through technical training, and, you know, when you're with your units, if you go on deployment, you guys all have the entire time, you have this common struggle, and it brings you closer together. It's actually kind of funny because one of the things that some of my buddies talk about, we look back on some of the some of our least favorite times in the military. You know, whether you're like on a field operation and maybe it was raining and it was 30 degrees and you're just, during that time, you're absolutely miserable. And the whole time you're like, oh, dude, I can't wait to get out. And you're just like daydreaming about what it's like to get out of the military. And, oh, dude, the grass is greener over there. You know, can't wait to get out. We're going to make so much more money and this and that and the other. And now when I talk to those same guys and we were sitting in puddles of mud in the freezing rain, we're like, dude, you remember that time we were sitting in the, like, you know, it was just super cold and we were freezing our butts off, and we just laugh and we think, dude, that was so fun. And it's so funny to have that perspective. But to go back to what you were saying, yeah, it's really, you know, to find this purpose and to meet the people that you meet during that time. And like I said, you know, you guys are going through this common struggle together, and then you get out, and it's, man, I'm trying not to get emotional because it's still a very touchy thing. But like, I'll never forget the moment that I left base for the last time. I had to physically pull my truck over and I wept because I immediately felt a loss. You know, some of the guys, I'm like, I don't know if I'll ever see them again. And I saw them every day, and, you know, we would laugh, we'd have a good time, and we would, you know, we'd work hard and we'd play hard. And it's a very hard thing to feel like you just lost a part of who you are. You know, I got out of the Navy, but the Navy still has a part of me, and it will forever have that part of me. And, you know, a lot of us, I'm sorry, I'm trying not to, like I said, I'm trying not to get emotional here.
Totally okay.
But you know, a lot of us spend a lot of time trying to find that part of us again. There's kind of this void inside of us, and we try to fill it with whatever we can to make us feel complete. And I personally don't think that you'll ever kind of fill that spot. That's a very special place. It's an absolute honor and privilege to be able to serve your country. And I've never taken that lightly. And, you know I kind of speak for me and James when I say we appreciate, you know, your support, and we appreciate everyone's support whenever they say thank you for your service. We don't take it lightly, and we consider it a huge honor to be able to have done that. But yeah, so we do spend a lot of time just trying to figure out, what our purpose is again. And I don't want to downplay what I have. I have a beautiful family. I have a wife, 2 kids, and I have so many friends and, other family members. And so I don't want to downplay anything on that part of having purpose, because, I am a father and I'm a son and I'm a husband, I'm a brother, I'm all these different things. But there is something so uniquely special about being in the military with your brothers and sisters in arms. And that is just, it's a very different kind of purpose. When I left the house, I wasn't just a husband and a father and a brother. I was a corpsman. I was,
Right.
I was a medic to the Marines, and, that's a very special relationship in itself. And, yeah, it's, we miss it so much,
I can imagine.
I could sit here all day and talk about it, but it is a very hard thing to figure out, which, I feel like I'm slowly kind of finding it again with this new mission with B3 Bar. So, we're really excited to dive into that.
Yeah, and that's what I'm excited about, because that's what I see, I was just talking to a youth group last night about depression, because, I suffered for many years with depression, and depression is just like this black cloud where if you don't learn how to identify, because I didn't know what was wrong, just
Right.
I knew something was wrong. Like, I don't want to
Right.
live anymore. That's not right, but, that's to me like where the faith came in. I had to really reach out to God, and I had to really try to ask him, like, what is going on? Like, I don't, this isn't normal,
Right.
and trying to really call it for what it is, so that you can get the healing that you need. And sometimes people do need to be on medication just to kind of get things sorted and get the professional help that you need. I don't doubt that at all. Like, some people do need to for a little while. I did, and
Yeah, I did actually.
yeah, and God can intervene in there too, and he did, and I'm grateful for that. And there's just so many labels of it, but the main thing is the purpose. And in when you don't have purpose in your life, that's what leads to the dark places. And
Yes,
so,
I agree.
and God gives us all purpose. He always has a purpose for us, and I believe he's bringing that up out of both of you, and just like, okay, let's do this, you guys, we're ready.
Amen.
You right? And so,
Yeah, amen.
James, let me hear about you a little bit. Let's hear about you, and what that was like, and give our audience just a little bit. You actually were in a little bit longer, it seems like, and you liked Guam.
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah. So I did a total of 11 years, and I recently got out last October.
Wow.
So it's just been a little bit more than 6 months since I've gotten out, and
Wow.
just as Chase was saying, it is like a very big part of me has gone, and then like even now that I'm in flight school, I do consistently think about after I do finish flight school, joining back up so I can fly, because I do generally like miss it. I know some people, like, it just didn't work out for them, but I mean, I was in the military since I was 17. Like,
Oh,
I turned
wow.
18 in boot camp.
Wow.
So that's the only thing that I really known, was being a corpsman, like working in pediatrics, working in the ICU, ER, anesthesia. All the places I've been to, I've always loved it. Like, I loved every second of what I was doing. And the main reason why I got out is just because, like, I started feeling like I was kind of just outgrowing it, not outgrowing the mission or outgrowing some of the people that I was with, because I've made some of my best friends while I was in the military. I mean, that's why me and Chase are still friends. But it just felt like I felt kind of like confined. So it's kind of weird feeling that as you're like in the military, then getting out and longing for it to be back, if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. And what I'm thinking as we're talking, you know, Chase, and this is how God works. Chase has been out for a little bit, and so he had to deal with a lot of these things, but has also been wanting, and it's like a deep passion, and this is how God works. He had a desire.
Mhm.
But then here comes you, and you're like, okay, I think I'm going to move out, because God knows who he can bring together to make something happen. And so
Yeah, exactly.
you kind of are like an answer to a prayer and a desire that Chase had, because if you didn't come out, then there would kind of be hard for you to both collaborate and do this cool thing right now and be co-founders, right, of something that's going to be great.
That's
So
very
Yeah.
true.
and
Very,
that's how,
so true.
right, and that's how God works, because Chase already had to endure the majority of what that's like, and he could actually walk you through some of those emotions, which I'm sure you've already talked to a lot of your friends, and what that feels like. But just like what he was just sharing, you're just recently out, and now he's going to be able to help you with that too. And I'm excited that you're doing flight school. I think that's really great. So
Yeah.
both of you are just perfect timing, because whether you know it or not, James, it's like an answer to what Chase has been needing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the both, because when we were actually talking about it, when he had came down and we were talking about it, I was like, dude, literally maybe like a week ago, I was praying, because I was like, I don't know what else to do, basically. Like, yes, I'm in flight school, and then I was also working at Scripps, but even though like I was still working in the medical field, like I didn't have that same purpose or drive
Mm-hmm.
working in civilian medicine as I did in military medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just kind of funny that like I was literally trying to find something to do and start another business. And then next thing you know, I'm sitting here doing some homework, and then Chase was like, hey man, can I give you a call? I'm like, yeah. And then he brought up the idea of G3, and I was like, when I got off the phone, I was like, dude, my prayers have just been answered. I was like, wow.
And I love how God answers things like that, right? Because that's like one of your, just like you can be, they call that your testimony, right? That's like one of your testimonies of how things got birthed, because God's hand is in it. I mean, you can't say it's not,
Right.
right? So you
Yeah.
know
Right.
that it is. And so, wow, great. So thank you for both sharing. And if you guys ever want to come on and just talk about military, I would love that.
Oh,
Because we
yeah,
could,
I could do that all day long.
yeah, we
Oh,
could
absolutely,
have
yeah.
a whole nother show, and I think people would just really love to hear what that's like, because not all of us, experience that, but there's also a lot of people that need to hear about it and what it feels like, and how do I overcome these things, because it helps other people, right? All of our things
Right.
that we've done in the past helps other people. And so let's talk about G3.
Yeah.
So Chase, you were the one that had this idea.
Yeah, it really kind of just started. It's almost been a couple years now. I got really serious about my health and fitness. And so every Sunday, and even today, every single Sunday, I meal prep for me and Haley for the week. And, like most people, after eating a little bit of food, I have this little kind of, I want a little something sweet, And so I was trying to find really just like healthier alternatives, like, granola bars, or, granola or protein bars, like anything kind of fit into this, kind of into that, that craving, but also be healthy. And, so I wasn't really too savvy with reading labels at the time. I would just kind of stick to the brands that I was familiar with and that I liked. And, after I really, really got serious, after like a year, I got this app that allows me to scan barcodes of almost any product. And when it scans the barcode, it gives it a rating from 1 to 100. And, it'll tell you if it's terrible for you, if it's okay for you, if it's excellent, And if there are any additives that are harmful to your body that are inside that product, it'll tell you. And you can click on the additive, and it'll tell you exactly why it's bad for you and what it does to you long term.
Wow.
So I started to really kind of geek out over this app. I don't know if it's pronounced Yucca or Yucca. It's spelled Yuka. It's a free app for those of you that are listening. And I highly encourage you to get it because you could really start to educate yourself on what you're actually buying and what you're putting into your body.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really geeked out when I got the app, and I would spend like an hour and a half in the store like a creep in the aisle just scanning barcodes. And, I have people like looking at me like, dude, what is this guy doing? So I really started to get into it, and then I started to realize all these products that I thought were healthy, that I thought were good for me, have these artificial fillers, whether that's for sweeteners, for textures, for taste, whatever it is. There's so many brands out there that have artificial ingredients. And it took me forever to find things that were just good for me and good for us, especially with the kids. We're trying to make sure that what we have in the pantry, what we cook is good.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a shame that it's so hard. It shouldn't be this hard for people to go out and find healthy food if that's what they want. Of course junk food's cool. I'd go on Taco Bell right now and jack it up, but it shouldn't be this difficult, and you shouldn't have to read between the lines. Like, you shouldn't have to have an app to scan a product that you think is good just to find out it's not. Like, it shouldn't be that difficult. So that's really what led me. I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna make like my own protein healthy snack, with good macros. So I bought a food processor, and I just started to experiment, and I just used all whole food, plant-based ingredients. It was almonds and oats and dates, and I used a blend of these super seeds, chia flax, and then I started to experiment with specific flavors, chocolate, peanut butter. I have an oatmeal raisin one, a lemon ginger one. That's my personal favorite. And so over the years that I started to really do this, I started to really refine it, with each recipe. Like, maybe I'll dial this back a little bit, or maybe it needs a little bit more of that. And it just got to the point where I was so confident in what I was making for just, at the time it was just for me and Haley. And I got so confident with what I was making. I was like, I'm doing this better. And I don't say that in a place of arrogance or cockiness, but I just knew, like, I'm making a product that genuinely tastes good, and it's so good for you. I mean, it's packed full of antioxidants, omega-3s, omega-6s, healthy fats, plant protein. I mean, I could go on and on, but I was so confident with it. And once I started to really gain confidence with what I was making, I started to kind of look for things like that in the market. Even at, like, I would go to Trader Joe's or I'd go to Sprouts, because that's their thing. They're,
right.
Super, all natural, a lot of plant-based stuff. And even then, like, I'm not finding things that taste as good. Maybe it's really chalky, or maybe it just doesn't taste right to me. And so that's when I was like, you know what? Kind of going back to what we were talking about with purpose. I have a great job, don't get me wrong. And like I said, I don't downplay what I have as far as my family, but that's when it really sparked. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start something for myself, and I'm going to get it out there. I'm going to continue to make this clean, whole food, plant-based product. I'm going to make sure that people understand it's owned by veterans, because I think people really love to support veterans, especially nowadays.
Yep.
And as far as like the branding goes, I want it to kind of be, more rugged, a little more, I guess, tough, for lack of a better term. You see some of these other brands, and they're kind of minimalistic. They're almost like clinical in appeal. It's simple. It's kind of just like really plain, earthy colors. So I'm like, let's just combine the whole thing to make, to really just kind of put it together, So clean ingredients, veteran owned, and just have kind of a tough brand with a great mission. I said it in that first initial video that I put out, is I respect brands so much that take anything that they can, whether that's, part of their actual profit, or they're donating their product itself, to certain organizations, just to help in any way that they can.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes back to what I was when I was a kid. Like I was walking dogs
Mm-hmm.
because I just wanted to raise a little bit of money, because I felt so bad that there were these dogs out there with maybe no bed in their cage, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe the shelters couldn't get toys for them to play with. So it's like kind of rooted in that as well. And so, with the way society is nowadays, I feel like we're so divided, right? If you get on social media right now, you'll probably come across a post fairly quickly that is just a division post, whether
Right.
it's political, religious, personal. Everyone is like picking a team. And if you're not on my team, you're not with me, and we can't be friends. It's like it shouldn't be like that. We should be able to come together. And I feel like the mission that we're really aiming to do is highlight all of these star people in our communities. Like I said, veterans, law enforcement, first responders,
Yep.
teachers, counselors, youth sport coaches, all these different kind of people. They play such a huge role in our communities,
Mm-hmm.
making so many different lives better at their own expense sometimes, putting in longer hours than they need to, giving a part of who they are to these other people. And we want to highlight that. We just want to really put these people on display for kind of a whole broad spectrum, right? Like not just for people to look at on social media, but to let them know, hey, you're doing a good job and you're
Mm-hmm.
doing a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really such a deeper cause than just, putting it on social media for a like. We really want people to feel good. I love when I come across some kind of video or a post and it's so wholesome. I'll sit there and I'll watch the whole thing.
Positive.
It's like, oh man, I feel good. I feel so much better looking at something that just was wholesome.
Right.
We spend a lot of time on our phones. We spend a lot of time in social media. And so if we can make it a little bit of a better place by highlighting these kind of everyday heroes in our communities, then, that's exactly what we want to do.
And so now with the G3 bar, I know it's just going to be starting. I don't know if James wants to answer this, but what are the next steps in getting this G3 bar out?
Yeah, so the next steps is actually getting it like food certified.
Okay.
So we recently got in contact with one of our food scientists that we're going to be working with, and then they're going to help us formulate the macros,
Okay.
right? So we're not just saying it, right? The label actually matches what we're also saying as well.
Right.
So after we work with the food scientists, we're also we've been looking for a co-packer. I think we found the co-packer of choice yesterday. So that's looking pretty great right now. And then after that, we're looking to start trying to get veteran certified, right?
Oh,
because
wow.
we want to give back to the military, where we both spent a good portion of our lives, right? So that's, for me, and I think I speak for both of us as well, that's one of the first places that we want to give back to. So we want to try to get on base into the commissaries, into the little next, the MCX and the PX as well. And then even potentially sponsor some people as well. Like, I know Chase is very big into the jiu-jitsu community. So giving back to people who are, being relentless in their journeys to give back as well, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely, because everybody needs to eat something healthy and be energized, right? And
Yeah,
so
exactly.
this is going to be a healthy way of doing that. And not only that, it kind of gives other people, especially if it's a veteran or anybody really, to see their purpose come to fruition, right? To see it come to life and to see what you're doing with it. It's not just about you, James and Chase, doing something big for you only. Like some people just say,
Right.
well, I'm going to get rich. This is what I'm going to do. It's all about me. That's definitely, from hearing both of you, what this is not about. This is more than that. This is about you both being able to stand in a gap that you've realized is there, that you could have purpose again in another way and reach a broad community that, maybe it's not your fellow people that you're in the service with, but the ones that have come home that still need to see that, things can work together for the good. It's like one of my favorite scriptures, Romans 8:28. All things come together for the good, especially for those that seek him and go after him, and that love him and do what he asks us to do. And so I can see, that's why I told you earlier, I can see God's hand in this, just kind of working along the way and just kind of guiding both of you to the right people of what. And it takes wisdom, it takes courage um to step out. Like Chase, you were saying, like, you've been sampling and perfecting these recipes for years now, and I'm sure that there were times where you and Haley were like, yeah, no, that doesn't taste good.
Yeah, there were a lot of those. And I do have to give Haley a big shout out, because she's kind of been the quality control queen for the last couple of years. She's the original customer. She'll always be the very first. And unfortunately, she's had to endure a lot of Frankenstein, combinations. Will this work with that? And, I can see it on her face when she takes a bite, like, no, that's not the winner. Okay, we'll try again. So shout out to her.
Shout out to cousin Haley.
Yeah,
Yes,
totally.
shout out for Haley. And so now, James, have you been able to taste some of these?
Oh yeah, when he came down, so after the call that he had gave me, he came down maybe a week later, brought multiple different flavors, and I think the lemon ginger is also my favorite one as well. I love lemon.
Mm-hmm.
So these things are really delicious. Like, me personally, I'm not too big into like plant-based, because I love a good steak. Let's be honest here. But
amen, brother.
Yeah. So when he came, and then I was like, yeah, I'll give him a try. And I was like, dude, these are delicious. And then like, just like he was saying, like, I've also been taking my health pretty serious as well. And like, he's not lying. After a good steak or like a spaghetti or something, you kind of want a nice little sweet treat right after.
Mm-hmm.
So what I used to do was I would take the rice cakes, and I'd put a little bit of Greek yogurt and kind of like drizzle them with agave.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's kind of what my sweet treat was, but that was also still healthy. But now that we're bringing these in, I also love like granola bars. So this is perfect. I could just like grab it and go, and just continuously going. So they are like super delicious. As of right now, the lemon ginger is my favorite.
Did you think? I think I would like the lemon ginger too, because I like both those flavors. And if you think about it, like, even like what you were saying, like if you're in the medical field, like, the doctors, the nurses, I mean, they need something quick, grab it. Okay, let's go back in, because they're constantly, emergencies are coming up, and they don't get to take like a duty-free lunch period, right? You've got emergencies. You're like going, and then a teacher, the same thing. Like, I just need something.
Right.
Like, I need to get through this, and so those of us that do have those type of professions that are on the go, I mean, you don't really get a break. You really don't, even though they say,
right,
oh, you can have your break now. You don't get a break. So
right. I have a really good friend that is a police officer up in Chino.
That too, yeah.
Or Chico, excuse me. And I was just talking, once I kind of announced this whole project, he hit me up. He's like, hey man, like, once you guys actually get the physical product, please send some up to the police department up here, because we are always trying to find healthy snacks that we can eat, because they're constantly patrolling the streets.
Yep.
It's not like they can take a leisurely lunch or, stop at a drive-thru all the time. And even then with the drive-thrus, it's not healthy. It's hard to find healthy stuff. Mm-hmm. So, I've already we have a lot of people that have been reaching out like, hey, when is it going to come out? Where can we get it? And that's kind of been part of the play, is like, we want to hype it up. That way, when we do launch, they understand our mission. They understand what we're trying to do and what we're creating. And we also wanted to make people feel like they were part of the journey.
Yes.
Like, we're slowly figuring this out as we go. but we just wanted to be transparent and let people see like what it's like. Like, hey, it's not easy. You know, we had a meeting a couple of Fridays ago with a co-pack in Los Angeles, and she absolutely ghosted us. And so it's like super frustrating because we thought, you know, we were going to meet up, shake hands, and start and go. And that's not the case. So it's frustrating, but we also wanted to let people know, you know, what it's like and make them feel like they're part of the process, because they're going to be part of the journey the entire time.
Right. And let me tell you, like when you say that, Chase, because when God's hand is in something, um, things like that are going to happen. And you have to just say, you know what, then that was not the right person for us to be with. God's will be done.
Right.
God's will has to be done in it. Because if you're allowing him to navigate, you know, it's almost like with me with the radio, he's my CEO, and I just kind of I just do what he tells me to do, because
Right.
there's
Yeah.
no way
Hands
that
and
this
feet.
is still going on since 2018 and we're still doing our thing, you know, because sometimes I'll be like, okay, Lord, you know, is this going to be my last year? Am I going to still be doing this? Do we keep on going? And then we just keep on going. I'm like, okay, I'll just keep on going as long as you tell me to go, because he's my CEO. And so, you
Right.
know, I just kind of run everything else as how he tells me. But when the both of you do that and you let God be the CEO of what you're doing, he's going to navigate the right people that need to be a part of this, because if he wants his hand in it, if it's a true answer to your prayer, and he wants his, you know, he wants to be part of what the two of you are doing, then he's going to make sure that the right people are helping you, because he doesn't want it to fail.
Right. And, you know, I think that is so evident already, because like James was saying earlier, just yesterday we had a Zoom call with a co-packing company based out of Denver, Colorado. And their whole thing on their website is, you know, they were in our shoes. They were just a couple of buddies, you know, trying to do a fun project, you know, with an energy bar. And they went through so many trials and tribulations, and they were just so tired of kind of getting bullied through this industry. And so they became the company that they wish they had when they were starting up.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it's incredible what they're doing. And so we Zoom called. His name is Jeff, out of Denver, Colorado, and a company called Basecamp. Shout out Basecamp. And so, yeah, like almost right away we were Zoom calling, and the whole time, and I'm sure James will agree with me, it just felt like we were talking with a buddy. Like, you know, we were just kind of hanging out, and he was being so transparent, and he was incredibly genuine. And it felt so good. It was very relieving to finally meet someone that understood kind of the struggle with this, but also understood the passion and what we're trying to do. And he's so cool. So we're so excited. We really do feel like we found the company and the guys to help us out. And within that, he's already given us other contacts with people he's working with as far as like distribution,
nice.
Packaging, you know, formulation with the food scientists. So it's like, you know, going back to what you said, it's really, God has an, I don't want to say funny, but it's just like, it's all in his timing, and it's his plan. And we're not always going to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
It's our job to have faith that he understands what he's doing. And he already has, the battle's already won. Mm-hmm. Right. And it's just our job to step into it in faith. Mm-hmm. And so it's already showing itself. It's very evident.
And so thank God that other lady ghosted you, right?
Honestly, yeah, gosh, we were so upset. I was so upset. And yeah, and it's like, wow, I had no idea this was on the backside of the whole thing. You know, what a blessing in disguise.
Yep, I love that. Awesome. And so I don't know, James, do you have anything you want to say in regards to how things are progressing? I mean, you've been out 6 months, and all of a sudden now you're like a co-founder of a company.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way. Especially when he came to me. Honestly, first off, like I felt like super honored that when he was like, dude, I wanna start this, and I want you to be here with me as I'm doing this. I was like, dude, like that speaks volumes of like our relationships as friends. That even though he wants to take this leap of faith, that he wants me to be there along with the journey. So that's awesome in itself. And then just the mission, like one of the mottos that I like for us is like, we're giving back to the people who are relentless and wanting to go the extra mile for not only themselves but for their community as well. Because as we know, like Chase was saying, like the country is very divided right now, and I think what we need most is that community. You know what I mean? So just being able to help each other out and being able to like serve the people who are being relentless in their community, those, the, like you said, those teachers, the farmers, the youth sports coaches, the counselors, anyone who is like giving back, that's who we want to serve, and that's who we want to basically like uplift during our this mission, you know.
And you're learning a lot along the way, to start something from ground up, from Haley having to be the taste tester all the way to right? And then, you probably had to get different food processors along the way and different things that you're doing, right? To just try to get
beginnings.
things. Yes,
Humble
humble beginnings. You'll be able to share about all those humble beginnings. And so, I'm really excited for both of you. I'm honored that I can have the opportunity to be able to share you with our audience and share the excitement and just to kind of, instill in everybody that's out there that, you know, um, purpose is really important for anybody, and God has a way of really helping everybody to get back to that purpose driven life that I believe is so important for everybody, because I think that's where the division is coming, is people don't have that true there's a lack of purpose, of what we're really here to do. And when they have that real heartfelt purpose, I think that division will be, it won't be so evident as it is right now, because when people are purpose driven, everybody's doing everything for everyone, right? You're not just doing it for yourself or for one side. You're literally doing it for everyone. And that's just so important. So, Chase, do you have any last words that you'd like to share with our audience?
I do. You guys can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, G3 Bars. Check us out. Give us a follow. We would love to have you part of the journey. So pretty soon, once we actually get the formulation done and we get ready to launch the production, we're going to do a Kickstarter. And we would absolutely love any and all support, even if it's just a shout out or a share on social media. We would absolutely appreciate that. And one last thing, I really want to talk about this real quick because it's so important. Going back to the very beginning of the conversation with, depression and all of that, if there are any listeners out there, military or not, if you're dealing with depression, it is important to just put your pride aside and admit what it is. It is what it is. And it's important to address it and get help and talk to anybody and everyone you can that you feel like really supports you, because that's a really serious thing, especially just all over in the country right now. So, hopefully anyone listening that feel like they need help, just do it. I couldn't recommend that enough. It's so helpful that I did it for me. So hopefully that helps somebody out.
Absolutely. And maybe when you guys do get close to where everything's going to happen, we can get you on again so you can share with us and give us updates, on what's going on, because the process, right? That way people can be excited that it's finally here, and we can give a shout out to that on the radio as well.
Absolutely.
And I want to address that, what you just said about getting the help, because I think it's very important. And not put the pride aside. It's very important. And find somebody that will listen to you. And sometimes, it's just like what Chase was saying, that first person ghosted them. That can help in just when you're trying to get help too, like you're not getting the right help. That doesn't mean for you to just stop. That just means that wasn't the right person for you to open up to. And you just have to keep trying. I mean, I had to try so many times to get somebody to really listen to me, rather than have somebody say, oh, just deal with it. No, I'm not going to deal with this because it's not normal. And so it
Right.
took me a long time to try to find out those right persons, the right therapist, and the right person that I could talk to and relate to, and know that God sees all things. He knows all things. There's scripture base that talks about how He catches all the tears that we have and He puts them in a bottle. And I believe that He saved those for that time that we need that refreshing, and He pours them back over us. But He does operate that way, and He loves the brokenhearted. He wants to help you to get back to that place. And sometimes we have to be broken in order to be fixed. We have to kind of
Right.
come to that
Yep.
place where the pride breaks down and then we build it back up. And He loves creating us into that person that He intended us to be, because He knew us all before the foundations of the earth were created. So He knew this opportunity was going to happen for you and James, Chase. He knew both of you
Right.
guys were going to come together again. Like, hey, you guys met in the service, and like, ooh, I wish you guys knew what I was going to do with you guys in like 11 years, James. And then, you're not going to believe what I've got Chase and Haley doing in their kitchen that's going to affect you later, James. It's like,
Right.
he's
That's
just
so
got
crazy.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's amazing at how he puts things together. So thank you both so much for taking the time to just talk about your passion and what you're doing, and I'm super excited. I'm going to go ahead and James, did you have anything you wanted to say last minute?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say something for all the listeners out there. I guess I'll leave you guys off with just be relentless in everything that you do.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what it is, just keep going, keep striving for greatness, because it's just right around the corner. Like we've been talking about this entire time, we didn't know that when we first met 5 years ago that this is what we would be and this is what we'll be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So continuously strive after your dreams, continuously go for it, because you never know what is out there. You never know what God has for you and what He has in store for you. So just be relentless and just keep going, and then you'll get there.
All right,
That's good.
audience. Well, we're gonna keep you posted on what G3's doing, the G3 bar, and we'll keep you posted. But those of you that are out there, look up G3 bars, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, right, Chase?
Yep.
Okay, and so I'm gonna go ahead and close this out in prayer, and I thank you, listeners, for listening. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this time that we have together, Father God. I thank you, Father, for creativity that you've instilled in both Chase and James, Father. And I just pray right now for our audience. I pray, Father, that if anybody is out there that heard our words on depression, Father God, we know that you want them to be free from that. And so I just send a prayer out to them right now for healing of that. I pray that they would have the courage to be able to seek help, and that they can understand that they do have a great purpose and a plan for their lives here, that you have something great for them to do. I thank you, Father, for G3 Bar and that vision of a product, Father God. I thank you for all the years of taste testing that Haley had to go through, and that Chase and just getting this to the place that you wanted it to be, because, Father, you want everything to be perfect. And so you wanted them to be able to fine tune these flavors so that it can be perfect, because it's all a representation of what you do through them. And so I just pray a blessing over both James and Chase right now. And anybody that is out there that says, I've got an idea and I think something can happen with this, let God take control of that. Father, I just pray that you plant seeds of wisdom, creativity, connect them to the right people that can help them. And I just bless the audience, Father, and bless James and Chase with what they're doing. And I just pray that right now in Jesus' name. And I thank all of you for listening and for just taking time to hear James and Chase's story. And you're going to hear more from them. I'm sure you are. So God bless you all.
Thank you for listening to this edition of Blossoms of My Life Radio. This program is listener supported. Blossoms of My Life Radio is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. To contact Ramona regarding donations, sharing your God story, or requests about her books, you can write to Ramona Trevino, P.O. Box 22731, Bakersfield, California 93390. That's P.O. Box 22731, Bakersfield, California 93390. Her website is the letter M, dauntless.org. That's iamdauntless.org. Her email is ramona@blossomsofmylife.org. That's ramona@blossomsofmylife.org. This program is a production and sponsored by Blossoms of My Life Radio Ministry and through listeners like you. And in closing, we just want to remind you to remember to see and be a blossom in someone's life.